Currently in person, we have Todd Goldman representing Kanawha County, Valerie Gaynor representing Kanawha County, Jay Snodgrass is here in person for Kanawha County, and Michael Farmer is here for Kanawha County. Representing the city of Charleston, we have Mr. Thomas Tolliver at the end of the table. Heidi Bonnet Adams has joined us electronically via Zoom, and I think Bobby Spry said she's on her way, so hopefully she'll join us shortly. Via phone, I have Mayor Casebolt from the city of Nitro. I have Gene Arthur here in person for South Charleston, and Bob Sutphin here in person for St. Albans. So we have 5 of our 8 partners present, and we did the quorum.
Okay, appreciate that. Mayor Casebolt, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Thanks for your attendance. We appreciate it. First item is going to be approval of the August minutes. Those were sent out electronically, mailed to those that chose mail. Has everybody have a chance to review those? And are there any questions, comments, revisions, or if not, is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay, motion by Mr. Tolliver, second by Snodgrass. Any other comments about the meeting minutes? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is going to be Jessica on the financial statements.
Good morning, everybody. I will start on Schedule 2, our statement of revenues and expenses. You'll see our operating expenses exceeded our operating revenues by $1.1 million this month. Revenues through August exceeded budget by about $149,000. Our fares are more than budget by $87,000. The majority of that is due to SOAR and motor fuel receipts being higher than average so far this year. Excuse me. Our return on investment remains high for August, but that will drop in September after the Federal Reserve's half-point interest rate cut this month. Currently expected that interest rates will continue to drop through 2025, so I do expect the returns to level out to our more conservative budget expectations. Operating expenses for August were $1.5 million, which is on the higher side of our average, but is still within our normal range. Under non-operating income, levies receipts still appear to be significantly under budget at $600,000 versus $1.4 million. But as I mentioned last month, collections vary from month to month, and late summer months are typically slow collection months. We did receive September's distributions already. We rebounded with $2.4 million in receipts, which is a big jump for us, and it puts us ahead of this time last year. That's good news.
Does anybody have any questions for Jessica on the financial statements? If not, those will be attached to the meeting minutes for future reference, and we'll move along to item 5, it looks like.
Okay. So 5A again is the KCEAA ambulance purchase. This is where we received an invoice from the ambulance authority for $135,000 for an ambulance. This is the 3rd month we've been going through this, and I appreciate Monica Mesa and Tracy Surface for being here today to answer some more questions. The board had asked a question if the ambulance authority could go back and see when they did purchase an ambulance, if an ambulance was purchased during fiscal year 22. And the ambulance authority can speak to that, but I believe that an ambulance was purchased in August of 2021.
It was received.
Received in August.
Yes,
okay.
we took delivery of it in August 21, and then did not take delivery of another one until January 23.
Okay.
And so when was the delivery for fiscal year 22 paid for?
It would have been paid at,
I don't know, do you pay in advance or pay when it's received?
It's
or-
usually
When
when it's
it's
received,
yeah.
a day or 2 after it's received.
So if it was received in August of 21, it would have been paid August or early September? Okay. So, I think most of the board members were here last month. Thank you for coming back, by the way. I'm sorry to drag this out. The question is about the ambulance that this authority agreed to fund on behalf of the ambulance authority that was part of the levy from 2017, I think.
Yes.
Apparently, I don't, what do you think happened? I mean, we didn't get an invoice for it, we didn't pay it because we didn't know to. What happened? What was the breakdown?
well, I think there obviously was some changes that occurred at KCA, just, not making excuses, but there were changes that occurred at the end of July of 21. So from my standpoint, when I realized that invoicing needed to occur, I started invoicing and had reached out to Sean for getting one of those started when we had received an ambulance in 23. So I can't speak to prior to that as how that process was working. I took over the end of July of 21. wasn't familiar with I was not familiar with the agreement at that point in time, but then, I know the agreement with the levy and KCA, and, you are right, sir, it does date back to 2017, and it was for the total of 6 ambulances during that, time period of the agreement.
Okay. And what's your opinion about the wording of the language in that agreement about whether this is still, like, whether we're responsible at this point to pay for it?
I mean, there's 2 sections in here, and just reviewing it, I mean, I would need legal to further give me guidance, but, and just reviewing it myself, it does say that, you know, KRT should not be obligated to make any funds not requested by KCA in any given fiscal year available in any future year. But then also it says by KRT, if KCA fails to honor the invoice and reporting requirements outlined in sections 2 and 3 of 5 after receiving written notice and a 30-day opportunity to cure. That's the only other piece that I would have some question that wants some further guidance on my end.
Okay. So basically, Claire, I think is what I'm hearing, and is that where you?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the information we requested. I don't know if the other board members have any thoughts or questions at this point. I don't think we need to drag it out. I think we need to make a decision today. They're here. If there's questions, let's ask them, but, we had our opportunity to do it last meeting as well.
There was agreement to get 6, is that correct? Did I miss that?
1 per year.
1 per year, and we got how many?
We have invoiced for 6, we've received payment on 5.
We agreed 6, as much as it pains us.
Where do we have the funds to?
Yeah.
Jessica, reserves, I suppose.
Reserves.
Same place where we're getting money to pay for our operations.
Yep.
I mean, my opinion, we should be in good faith. We did promise them 6. And, sounds like there might have been some errors there, clerical, but that's just my opinion.
Would you like to make a motion, or?
I
anybody have any-
would make a motion to approve the sixth and final ambulance for Kanawha County Ambulance Service.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is second to fund the ambulance invoice that was submitted by the ambulance authority. Are there any other comments or questions, particularly anybody online that's sometimes hard to jump in? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for being here. I apologize
No,
it
we
takes so long.
appreciate you, and we
Yep.
appreciate the collaboration with KRT.
Yep,
and
we have a good relationship, and I think this
Absolutely, we
speaks to
appreciate
that.
it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, so on to old business, insurance report, Kurt.
To the board, we had 2 more claims added this month for August. One was a heartbreak, and the other one was a passenger fell entering the bus. You'll notice in your packet this time that I've added the 2 closed claims. I will say coming up in the next month, we'll have quite a few more closed claims. So we are making some movement on the claims. So that's the report. I'll answer any questions.
One question, still show up top under BRIM program. We are
Yeah,
not, we're not under BRIM at this point.
Correct, I need to change that. That's a good catch.
And that would be effective about what date?
It'd be July 22nd, 2023.
23.
Yeah.
What's the significance of the red?
It's closed.
Those are the closed ones?
Yes.
Okay.
We needed to win, so.
We need it.
I had board members ask me about where we were with claims, so I thought I would add closed claims on there to let you know there is some movement on some of these claims.
Okay, the list seems to be longer rather than shorter.
Well, next month it'll be shorter.
Okay.
Well.
We're also. You're noticing a difference in the insurance report when we switched from BRIM to West Virginia Corp. West Virginia Corp is much less prone to just settling instantly the way BRIM was. So with BRIM, you saw things fall off because they just paid it out. So West Virginia Corp's credit, they are going more in depth on a lot of these cases, which make them drag out, but they've been denying more
Correct.
cases than we're used to.
So since we're under a risk pool and we're relying on everyone, they seem to go the extra mile to make sure that the claim's legitimate, instead of just saying, you know, here's a check.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the claims, even simpler claims, have been drawn out a little bit more, and they're making the individual provide medical records and, you know, all the information they need to make a decision, so.
And that's gonna be good, because that's gonna keep a frivolous claim from being filed.
But, and that's the goal.
Yes.
It's great for us. Another thing on the insurance topic was in the West Virginia Public Transit Association, I believe it's 4 or 5 of the different entities have been given, including TTA, has been given a notice that Brim is canceling their insurance. So Brim, legislation was passed that allowed Brim to drop non-state agencies, so it was fortuitous of us to get ahead of that, move to West Virginia Court with lower premiums and not have this scenario that unfortunately those agencies are in.
And our exposure remains the same,
I mean,
2,500 a claim.
Yes.
Do we turn every single incident into them and let them weed it out, or is there some that we can pay off that might be a $200 mirror or something?
Mirrors, you're exactly
Yeah,
right,
those ones,
mirrors.
yeah.
I hold mirror court
Okay.
weekly.
All right.
Okay, the next is gonna be the CAT operations report, Jason.
On operations report 1, we saw a 1% decrease in ridership from the year before, but there was roughly a 5,000 increase in ridership from the month before. Then on the bottom under the receipts box, the SOAR program brought in 152,000 in August. Then over in the transit app box there, we had an increase of almost 2,000 rides a month that are utilizing the transit app. And the sessions there on the far right, it increased almost 20,000 sessions there from the previous month.
Hey Jacob, on the, under the receipts box for fixed route under motor care, like July and August, I mean, those numbers are exactly the same. Is
Yeah,
that,
we double checked and it was the same. They
Wow.
bought the same
Okay.
amount of
Wow.
motor care fixed route passes those
Okay.
2 months.
Yeah, it's not necessarily individuals who road, they buy the same.
Okay.
It looks like we're gonna buy the same block every
Mhm.
month, yes.
okay,
So that would be the same.
Except that stood out, so we double checked.
okay.
Will they benefit from the fare capping concept, any of these users?
So they're buying monthly passes, so.
Which is fare cap?
But we'll still like to agencies sell a monthly pass. The process is easier for the agencies to hand out the preloaded monthly passes. So they'll benefit in the price being lower.
They'll
The
pay
agencies-
50 instead of
yeah,
60.
instead of 60. And then on the next report 2, the day passes there with the Masabi, and we saw an increase there, 600 passes sold from the previous month. And then on the bottom there in the ridership program, with UC going back into session in August, we saw 200 ridership increase there from July. And the other programs stayed pretty consistent. That's all I have unless there's any questions.
Tell us about KRT Plus.
So a couple of weeks ago, we launched the pilot of KRT Plus. With any technology that you add, there's little headaches, little pain points. So we're working through those pain points, but we had some development this week of having those issues resolved. So in the next couple of weeks, we think we'll be in a good place to go out to the public and inform them of the pilot and see how they respond to the new demand service.
Do you know what the usage has been?
So it's mainly just been internally, us testing it out ourselves, writing it, but we have had a couple people utilize the service. We might have 2 rides a day from the general public utilizing it. It's going fairly well.
Those would be users that just download the app. It's in the App Store right now, so if you download the app, you can use the service today. We just haven't pressed it. We want to make sure it worked in every single scenario, so they're getting picked up or taken to the bus route, getting picked up, traveling inside the zone, and then the one we had to hang up on was the airport trip. It was giving us an error, so we worked that out yesterday. So we're getting closer to the point. When you do a pilot, the nice thing about being a pilot is you you can iron out those inconsistencies. We're now getting closer to the point of saying, hey, people get on here and see how this works. But a couple of individuals have downloaded it on their own and used the service, and it's enough.
Yeah.
You can download it today and put it in there that you wanna go to the airport and it'll come pick you up.
So what's the timing as far as advertising to the public and the paywall?
So we're expecting in a couple weeks to have all the remaining issues lined out, so I would say within a month, we would go out to the public. I think during the pilot, we're still there's 3 options to utilize the service. There's getting into the fixed route and then traveling within the zone. Those 2 options will be free during the pilot. Then the third option, Sean mentioned going to the airport, would be a $12 cost associated with that trip. So in a month's time, we look to turn those prices on.
Okay.
Let's see if I got this right.
Yeah.
If you wanna use this plus, you call, they'll pick you up and take you to the bus route.
Yeah, so you can use the app to book your trip or call our office and our customer service representatives will schedule the trip for you, like they do now for ADA passengers.
They'll bring you back to the bus route, and then when you return, do you call and get a ride home?
You would repeat the process. You would use the app before you get onto the fixed route bus and plan your journey, and then that KRT Plus vehicle would be waiting for you at the bus stop when you get off to take you back home. Or you can call in and schedule that leg of the trip.
This is for people that aren't on the bus route.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or if you wanna go within your zone, Bob, you can do that. I caught it from my office to Kroger, cause it's all in the same zone. Shopped and went back to my office. And so it works for that too. Or if you wanna get to Yeager Airport.
Yeah.
As a point
You
of
go cross zone right now in the 3 zones: West Charleston, East Charleston, and South Hills. Any of those 3 zones, you could travel to the airport or from the airport.
So you just put in your start destination, your start pickup, and then your destination. It's just like an Uber or Lyft. You hit next, and finds your ride, and then hopefully it doesn't embarrass me when it tells me how long it's gonna be. And it's, yeah. Okay. It's your fault, Jake.
Yeah.
But conceptually, it's that easy.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that being public and seeing the response to that.
Absolutely.
Okay, last, under old business is the COA, another item that's been on our agenda for quite a while. You wanna start, Sean?
Sure, so, a couple weeks ago, we had the second meeting of our COA committee, which was aimed at taking the 2 options that we had narrowed it down to. We had narrowed down the decision to, essentially, are we gonna keep Sunday service, or are we gonna eliminate Sunday service and go with the halving of those 11 routes that we had originally, the original COA proposal had recommended replacing entirely with on-demand service. The committee met, the committee made a recommendation to go with the option that would eliminate Sunday service. Last evening, we had our 3rd public hearing to make sure we could let the public know, hey, this is the recommendation. We have that done. Jacob's proving here, you can be picked up in 3 minutes. Thanks, Jacob. We had that hearing last night, about 9 or 10 individuals showed up. It was 7 speakers, no unique speakers, so it was individuals we've heard from before, which was fantastic. I really appreciate them continuing to show up in this process and give us their feedback. And so we're here today for the board to hear that recommendation from the COA committee and then decide whether they want to how you want to move forward. Travis, can you throw up the PowerPoint of what that recommendation, the overview of that recommendation?
Yes, sir. One second.
It's this screen here, which would eliminate Sunday service. It would turn Saturday service on routes 1, 2, 3, 17, 19, 21, and 22. And those 11 routes that we had originally talked about discontinuing or replacing with on-demand would operate trips half of the current weekdays, half their current trips of the weekday, which we will focus that on the morning and the afternoon trips where we see the most ridership. People want to get to and from work. So Jacob and his team will go through and find the routes that make sense to still run. And our last outbound trip departs at 11 p.m. This has a cost savings of estimated at $1.9 million, which gets us to that mark of balancing our budget, which is important to us.
Yeah, so I think last board meeting, Jay brought up a couple of questions. There was a good discussion about what it would look like, whether we did option 2 or 3, which was the 2 that we were down to. One of them kept Sunday service. One of them got rid of Sunday service. And one of the questions, Jay, was about the usage for hospitals. And I don't know if you got wrapped into one of the emails, but that was looked at carefully. It turns out that that's not a big part of the usage. I think I'm speaking correctly, Jacob. So that was the second meeting, was to go over, fine tune some of the questions that the board had. And we went through those. The committee came to the conclusion that the option 3, which would be the choice that's going to eliminate Sunday service, is the best option for the authority to pursue. It's up to this board to make that decision, but that was the committee's recommendation after looking at the options that we talked about, the presentations that were here. I've been to all 3 of the public hearings. Public hearing last night didn't bring any new concepts to the table that needed to be discussed. Speaking with all the stakeholders, the drivers, the operators, the management, the community. There's obviously some folks that are gonna be affected by this, and we know that, and we don't take that lightly. But we also are gonna open up service through KRT Plus, which has an expense associated with it, to a lot of people in the community that don't currently live walking distance to a fixed line route. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Yes, sir.
On Sunday, if you do this on Sunday, if the Plus takes you to the bus route and there's no bus, that's not gonna work.
There's literally no service on Sunday.
Yeah,
No-
so
no KRT
does the
Plus.
Plus take you to where you're wanting to go?
There's no plus either.
No
That's-
plus either.
Ah,
Yeah.
'Cause
that would answer that
Yeah,
question.
the on-demand transit works best when it is doing exactly what you said, taking you to the fixed route. So without that fixed route concept, that day, it wouldn't be feasible to get people door to door.
There's a couple of things. One, that Plus needs to overlay the operation of the fixed route. Secondly, even though Sunday service had limited routes, there was 25 people with cleaners and maintenance staff that were here to handle that equipment. That, we wouldn't get rid of that if we had KRT Plus operating on Sunday as well. So I'm glad you clarified that, because everybody needs to know that Sunday service is literally, I'm not sure there'll be staff here at all, other than maybe a small maintenance crew occasionally, because all our assets will be right here, and we can be more effective at maintaining the assets.
Will that affect the driver's salary?
The drivers' salaries will not be affected. And
There'll be no Sunday service at all, right?
they're guaranteed certain hours through the collective bargaining agreement, and that's not changed. Brett, I'd love for you, if you'd like to speak to this. You know, Brett represents the ATU, he's actually in our authority, he's the driver, to speak to option 3 as far as the feedback that you've heard from your folks.
Like I said, a lot of them was worried about when all this came about with layoffs, and that was one particular thing I will stand by any plan as long as there's no layoffs whatsoever. My members, a lot of them would like to have a Sunday off. They've looked at this option as well. They're just, whatever you all decide, then I would have to, talk to them and stuff, explain it to them, but they, Sunday service is what it is, and they feel like, they like option 2, which is no Sunday service.
It's 3.
Is it 3 now? I thought 3 was.
Am I calling the right one?
I thought 3
Sunday
was
like
with
no
Sunday
Sunday
service and 2 is without.
That's screwed up. Okay.
But, like I said, it's your guys' decision to decide on this. But, as long as there's no layoffs, I'm behind whatever plan to keep things rolling here at KRT.
And that's in that effect what we're trying to do, is to prepare for a budget that's never gonna get cheaper to operate, and expand the service by offering an option that we've never had to a group of the community that has never seen bus service as available to them because they don't live walking distance to a bus route.
Can you explain, Sean, the Saturday service on those certain routes? I don't think we've focused in or talked about that a lot, so just.
Sure. So what this, that second bullet there, where it talks about Saturday service on routes 1, 2, 3, 17, 21, 22, that is close to what now happens on a Sunday, Jake. There's a couple more routes, correct?
17 and 19, the south side and Charleston Loop, Charlie, those would still run on Saturday.
Yeah, so those are our highest ridden routes, and so to maintain Saturday service on those routes, so there is a savings on Saturday also, so it's not just Sundays are going away. It is the Saturday service on some of those routes under there could potentially go away, but what you're talking about too, though, remember that the KRT Plus, as it rolls out, would operate on Saturdays. So those individuals who may not see their route on a Saturday service list up here would still be eligible eventually as the system rolls out to get that KRT Plus, to still get to where they're going. That's why we feel confident that it's still fair for those passengers. Good question.
Was there not another option of 1.3 million saving the 2 that kept Sunday? Now, this is terrible, I know I'm going against the grain. If you're gonna have a transit system, I think you need Sunday. Now, if it's too expensive and you can't handle it, then so be it. But I personally, and I don't know, I'm not trying to influence anybody, but if you're gonna have a service, you need to have 7 days a week.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
And there definitely was an option that included Sunday service as part of the transition, and it had a cost savings associated with it that would just about let us to break even, assuming that all of the assumptions that went into the calculations as to what that service was gonna cost and what we were gonna save are accurate. I kind of suspect that we won't save $1.9 million, but we might save 1.7, we hope, which puts us in a position to go forward, but also supplement the KRT Plus system as it rolls out and we see how it is embraced by the community, because we might need to spend some capital expenditure to make that happen. The other component to the Sunday service was that if you look at the subsidized cost of some of the routes that we are reducing, it's up there sky high with those that we are reducing. And that was one thing that led me to the conclusion that if we're having to cut back on routes that are heavily subsidized, that entire Sunday's subsidized at a similar level. It just doesn't have the ridership that we do the rest of the week. And it costs us 25 personnel every Sunday to provide that limited amount of service.
And it's a great point. And what we did too, Bob, is we looked around the transit agencies in surrounding states, and there were 24 transit agencies out of 175 in their surrounding states that had Sunday service. Almost every single one of them had were in urban areas that had extreme ridership. Even Louisville just cut their Sunday service. They had 5 to 6 million trips a year. So that was something we took into account. We also, when we look at a $1.375 million budget deficit, that was for fiscal year 25, which we're already in the middle of. These changes won't happen until February of 2025, so almost at the end of that fiscal year. So the savings, you're already starting late. So coming into next fiscal year, it's not a $1.375 million deficit. It's going to be larger than that. Plus, every year when we go through the budgeting process, I stress that, when we give the operations report and we talk about revenues being up, that's almost all attributed to the SOAR program. That SOAR program, every single year, we knock on wood and hope that that's going to still happen. To perpetually budget with the idea and the concept that is going to be a funding stream, I think is ill-conceived. So this does give us that cushion. The COA told us that the on-demand transit could happen with the existing drivers with minimal cost. I think if this program takes off, it's going to cost us some money to run that system, and that's a good thing because it's a system, as Todd said, that will serve people who don't currently have the ability to get to and from, or who will never ride the bus with KRT. But maybe they will take it to the airport, maybe they will take it home from a basketball game or a restaurant. Maybe they won't drive drunk home from a restaurant because KRT saved their life. That's a real scenario down the road that we could look at and be proud of. So there are some things to take into consideration, but I think every single year we're going to get closer to a budget deficit, and I think I'm really proud that we've had 3 public hearings. We've had over 600 public comments. One of the most transparent processes, I think. The consultant we work with on this said, holy cow, you're doing another public hearing. Yeah, we want to hear all the feedback we can to make a really tough decision, but the best decision. And by getting rid of Sunday service, we were able to maintain service on all those 11 routes during the weekday, which was overwhelmingly the responses we heard was, hey, can you cut back, not cut out? okay, we can do that, but we're gonna have to give somewhere. We can't continue to do everything at the same level and then hope that it costs less, cause it just
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, you know, I don't downplay how hard this is on the board. It's been hard on our staff to work on this and sit through these hearings, where we know that the comments being made by the public of how this is gonna impact them, they're legitimate, they're real. But we also know that in order to continue this service in a way that we can be proud of and stand behind, we have to make some tough choices. So continuing to offer a service and say, hey, we're gonna keep routes the same, or we won't eliminate Sunday service, but if we don't have the drivers to do it, or if we don't have the vehicles to do it, because we can't pay to fix a building, it's disingenuous. I would rather have a service where I say, hey, there's no Sunday service, but I guarantee 100% of the time we're gonna show up, because we have the drivers and the buses, than to keep service the same, and 50% of the time, I let you down because the bus doesn't show up, because I couldn't afford to fix it, or I couldn't find an operator because someone went through the application process and when they heard they had to work Sundays for the first 10 years they worked here, they wouldn't work here. So there's several different reasons why the Sunday service was attractive to us. It's still tough to swallow, but it's something we stand behind, and I don't think it makes us an outlier. Morgantown's the only other transit entity in the state that has Sunday service. That's mainly associated with their university students. So it's a legitimate concern, but it's something we've taken into consideration, and we feel confident that it's the least evil choice we have to make.
Is there an option to open it back up if there's too many complaints from the public? Is there an option to open Sunday back up?
I mean, the board.
Yeah, well, we can go through that process at any point in time. I mean, then that's one thing that we've learned is that we've waited about 10 years to do this analysis. And we should have done it at 1 year, and 2 years, and 3 years, so that it's not so dramatic when it does happen.
Okay, when is this gonna take effect to give the public a chance to adjust to this?
Yeah, so if the board decides to make changes, we run on what we call markups, which is every 3 times a year our operators pick what schedules they'll drive. So the next markup that would actually be feasible for us to pull this off will be in February of 2025, which we're happy with because that actually gives us the time to do the public information campaign, come up with the schedules, make sure we let passengers know, hey, here's how your routes will be impacted. Maybe you caught the bus at this time on one of these routes. Hey, the route's still there, that's good news, but it runs these times of the day now instead of those times of the day. That's the real impact.
So I'm sure Bob's not alone with reservations about this. I'm right there with you because it's not a comfortable decision to have to make. I've come out publicly in our committee meetings. I think that eliminating the Sunday service is the best for the authority and all the stakeholders. That's my position. This is everybody's chance to state how they feel because we need to make a decision on this and move forward.
I mean, I was on the committee that made the recommendation for the elimination of Sunday service, and again, it's not something, that recommendation wasn't light, you know, there was a lot of thought and due diligence behind it. I think, and, you know, Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the elimination of Sunday service in and of itself is almost $500,000 savings approximately. It's a huge savings, and, our drivers do such a good job for us, and I think giving them the ability to have Sundays off is important as well. So again, you know, I don't think, you know, from my perspective, it's not a decision that I made lightly when, you know, when I went through the analysis, because we do know that it's gonna affect people's lives. But again, for the sustainability and the longevity of the authority and to provide better service over time, I agree that I think that that's the best option.
If we do cut the Sunday services, would that savings, would that allow to bring maybe the fares down? Since we're gonna have this race savings?
Part of, Mr. Tyler, part of the COA also is a recommendation on the fare analysis. Travis, you want to do that also? It's a good point. Slide through these changes. One of the proposed changes as well is embracing the on-demand transit and the changes to the fixed route were fare recommendations, which would do that. It increases the single day pass from $250 to $350, but what's really important here is that it lowers the 31-day, or what we call the monthly pass, from $60 to $50. and it institutes this fare capping program where if you pay over the course of a month the $50, the next time you go to buy a ticket, it says, hey, it's free. Because some individuals at the beginning of the month may not be able to drop $50 and buy a month pass, but what happens currently in the system is over the course of those next 31 days, they end up paying more than if they had just bought that pass the first day. We don't want to do that to people. So with this system, once they hit that $50 limit, it'll say, hey, your next ride is free until that 31-day expires. So yeah, the answer to your question is yes. With some of these savings, it's also looked at, hey, how can we be more friendly to our passengers and understand the situation they're in? And we think by making these changes, it helps do that also.
The reason I say that might appease those the public who don't agree. I'm quite sure that might be an advantage to them.
It's definitely a nod toward those that use our regular customers. So those are the folks that will benefit.
I'll make a motion at this point that we accept the proposal, whatever number it is, number 2 or number 3, for the elimination of Sunday service and reducing some of the frequency of this one on the screen.
And we need to capture the fare structure as part of that, or do you think it should be separate motion? Let's put it together. Okay. Okay, so does anybody want to look at the service schedule and the fare structure separately, or could we potentially do that as one motion?
Yeah.
I'll amend the motion to include the changes to the fare structure.
Okay. So there's a motion by Gaynor. Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Mr. Farmer, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody online have any comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll recognize Mr. Sutphin as a nay.
Don't rest your conscience.
And you've been a fantastic board member, and I love it when you get engaged because I know you thought through all these, so I appreciate that.
Thanks, sir.
But the motion does carry. Appreciate all the time that it's taken to get to this point. The involvement of the committee members and staff, the drivers, it's a long time to get here. There's still a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we've just made an important decision for sustainability of the authority. New business, transit van RFP. Is that something Travis is going to talk about?
Yeah.
Yes, so just recently we received proposals from 4 offers, Roar Bus, Sunny Merriman, Bus Service Inc., and Model 1. Up there you'll see the scoring. This was done by Jacob, Chris, Baldwin, and I.
This
So-
is the transit vans, the 13 transit vans that we budgeted for to help provide the KRT bus service.
Yes. So you'll see the proposed price. This is all apples to apples. They're all Ford Transit vans, the same models throughout. Roar was the highest, 98,915. Sunny Merriman right at 97.5. Bus Service Inc. was right there with them at 95. And also Model 1 being the cheapest at $94,108. There was a discrepancy with Model 1. You'll see the highlighted portion of estimated delivery date. Roar received the amendment for estimated delivery date being requested, but Model 1 did not receive that from us. So we, after speaking with legal counsel, decided to waive that amendment. But I could not change the score as it was already posted to everyone. But had they received the estimated delivery date, which they said was 7 months, which was very good, they would have scored right at 98. So they would have been the highest. That's who staff is recommending to go with is Model 1 for the transit vans.
So the price difference is about $1,000, so a little over $1,000. So purchasing 13 vehicles, about $14,000 in savings. Again, it's apples and apples, so it's a small clerical error that we'll be able to fix in future RFPs for our respondents to make sure that they are able to successfully complete the RFPs. But considering it's the same exact vehicle, even though the score was lower, staff recommends going with Model 1 for this RFP.
And we're certain about the status of this clerical error?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we've worked through council.
Okay. So the recommendations go with Model 1, which will be the cheapest option. They're all identical buses, I recall.
Yes.
At Aurora, we had a problem with it in the past, didn't we? They thought we wanted cabs and chassis, and we ended up having to pay extra. Was it Aurora that did that to us?
No, I forget who that was, but I know you're talking. It created bus sales. Yeah.
Aurora, we had some issues with time deliveries and with
Product.
But the product, yeah, the level of quality of some, we've been fixing some of the things we've received in the past.
Okay.
I'll make your motion that you go with the recommendation of the, Lord, I'm asleep this morning. I'll make your motion that we go with the,
With Model 1?
Model 1.
Model 1, thank you
Okay.
very much, sir.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutphen and a second to go with the Model 1 proposal for the transit vans. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Next one's automated vehicle introduction.
Yeah, so this is a topic, something new. We're always looking at ways to embrace technology here at KRT, and I thought it would be nice to put a new concept in front of us. We've been talking about some of the same programs for a while. But Jacob and I had a webinar with a team that is embracing some technologies down the road. And again, I'm going to lay this out for you. I don't want you to think overnight we're talking about autonomous vehicles. But there is some excitement in the world today. We talk about the individuals who need transportation. And we talk about those challenges to driving, the rising cost of individuals and vehicles, etc. We talk about embracing on-demand transit. And one of those things are what we call autonomous vehicles. So right now, autonomous vehicles are on the cutting edge. FTA is coming out with what they call smart grants for transit entities to look at this technology. So when we talk about Teslas or different vehicles, that not necessarily that they drive themselves, you still have operators in there who are like ambassadors, but who help make those vehicles be safer, more fuel efficient, etc. In the next 1 to 3 years, and then after that, autonomous vehicles are going to be a huge player in the field of public transit. This is happening in several different properties across the United States. Columbus, Ohio is probably the closest one we've seen who has gone with this program, and I'll show you kind of what it looks like. Just skip ahead here. It's the same idea of rideshare service of getting picked up and dropped off, but you have a smaller zone that could be operated by an actual vehicle, something like this. Like May Mobility has an autonomous Toyota Sienna that's actually made in the factory by Toyota for this purpose, and it handles a smaller area. So an area that maybe it wouldn't make sense to have a driver set up for that one small portion. You can have these autonomous vehicles operating, and that's kind of the idea, is that they operate on their own. They can still accommodate 88 passengers, etc. So this is just, I want to make sure our board is always on the leading edge of these things. I don't want to, it's not a reality that we're talking about this happening anytime soon, but we're always going to continue to embrace new technologies and try to stay on top of things. So I'm going to keep bringing this up because eventually, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe longer down the road, this will be a reality in time. And these operations are happening all over the country. So, and again, the laws in different states are different, but in West Virginia, they're actually, the code allows us to test and deploy these AVs currently. So there's not legal any code regulations to worry about this time. But again, we're really far away from this, but I don't want to surprise you all. This is some exciting stuff to talk about. That's it.
So that concludes the scheduled part of the meeting. We do have a public comment opportunity. I don't know if somebody's signed up. Has anybody signed up to speak, make public comment?
I don't think anyone did. Does anyone have a comment?
Okay. If not, thank you.